Good morning, and thank you for being here. There is one small morning habit that most people never think about, even though it can make your legs feel 10 to 15 years younger. And every time I remember the patients who came to me with weak legs, heavy steps, and that strange cotton-like feeling in their feet, only to return weeks later with the same quiet smile and say, "Doctor, I can feel the ground again," I'm reminded why this matters so much, because legs are not just muscles, they are freedom. They decide whether you can walk a trail without fear, climb stairs without gripping the railing, or hold your grandchild without worrying that your body might tilt backward. And what surprises most people is that the path back to that freedom usually does not start in a gym, not with intense exercise and not with expensive supplements. It often starts right in your kitchen at your breakfast table, the place where we move on autopilot, eating the same things every morning without noticing that tiny, almost invisible decisions quietly shape how our body will function for the rest of the day. And if you think back to your younger years, you may remember how just 5 minutes of brisk walking was enough to make your legs feel warm, solid, and alive. While today that sensation may fade faster, but it has not disappeared. It is still there waiting for the right signal. And when people tell me, "Doctor, age is age," I always explain that age itself does not weaken legs. What weakens them is that we stop helping them handle daily load. Blood flow slows, small stabilizing muscles stop activating, joints receive less nourishment, nerve endings lose clarity, and the body adapts quietly in ways that do not serve us. But when you give the body the right morning fuel, something changes. Not dramatically, not instantly, but reliably, like an old lamp left in a cold storage room that flickers at first and then slowly grows brighter and steadier. And I remember a woman who was 72 who told me her legs felt especially weak in the mornings, that standing up felt uncertain, and yet after changing just one simple morning habit, she came back 2 weeks later and said, almost surprised, that she walked to the store without stopping for the first time in years, and moments like that are not miracles. They are reminders that the body can change at any age when it receives the correct signal at the correct time. What most people do not realize is that the morning is the most sensitive moment for the legs, because after sleep the blood is slightly thicker, circulation in the lower body is slower, the muscles are undernourished, and the nerves that control balance and stability are still half asleep. And if at that exact moment the body receives the wrong signal, something heavy, overly sweet, or rushed, the vessels react like tired workers who have not been warmed up yet, slowly and reluctantly. But when the right signal is given, the response is completely different. The vessels begin to open, circulation increases, and the legs wake up the way they were designed to. And this is why I always tell my patients that the morning is not neutral, especially after 50. Every morning choice either helps your legs feel younger or quietly accelerates their decline. And this is also why I ask you to stay until the end, not to create suspense, but because without understanding why this works, the advice itself loses its power. And you need the full picture so that what I share becomes a habit rather than another forgotten tip. Because strong legs do not come from random healthy foods. They come from very specific nourishment that does two essential things at the same time. First, it activates circulation so blood truly reaches the feet and calves. And second, it feeds muscles and connective tissues so they do not just survive the day but actually regain strength. And I remember a man who was 68, strong by nature, hard-working, who told me every morning felt the same. He would stand up, take a few steps, and feel as if the floor were unstable beneath him for 10 minutes. He assumed it was his joints, but his joints were fine. The problem was that his vessels were sluggish, as if winter never ended for them. And when I asked what he ate in the mornings, he said, "Tea, bread, whatever is there." And on the third day after changing just one morning habit, he came back and said, "Doctor, I didn't expect this. My legs woke up before I did, and this is how a proper morning activation works." But to understand why one simple food can create such a change, we first need to understand what the legs actually lack in the morning. And it is not effort. It is not exercise. It is nourishment for the small muscles of the feet and lower legs, the muscles that keep you stable on stairs, during turns, and on uneven ground, the ones that wake up last and shut down first. And when these muscles receive gentle, correct fuel early in the day, they activate faster, and people often describe it in simple words: "I feel more solid." And this is not imagination, it is physiology, because for the legs to be strong, they need two resources delivered calmly and consistently: energy without sugar spikes and micronutrients without stress. And this is where most morning routines fail. They give a sharp rise, followed by a sharp fall, leaving weakness behind, while mature legs need a steady, quiet flow. And when people hear this, they often ask me, "Doctor, is it really that simple?" And the answer is yes, because the legs are not a separate system, they are part of the whole metabolic rhythm. And when you start the morning correctly, you start them correctly too. Another important truth that almost no one talks about is that the body absorbs supportive nutrients most efficiently in the morning, because after sleep, it is especially receptive to elements that nourish nerves, blood vessels, and muscle fibers. And this is why the right morning choice often produces noticeable changes faster than people expect, not because it is magical, but because it arrives at the exact moment the body is ready to use it. And I often explain this with a simple image. Imagine a path that no one has walked on for a long time. Leaves have settled, the ground has compacted, and the way forward feels uncertain. But if you walk that path gently every day, it clears itself naturally. And the same thing happens in the legs. They do not need force, they need regular, precise nourishment. And when people commit to it, even for 7 days, they often notice early signs: warmer feet, steadier steps, less shaking on stairs, and a feeling that the legs are no longer tired before the day even begins. And many report this as early as the 3rd day, though consistency is what allows the change to last. And this brings us to a point that surprises most people. The food that strengthens legs is not exotic, not expensive, and not a modern superfood. It is something available in almost every grocery store. But before naming it, I always explain the deeper layer, because without understanding this layer, people try it once or twice and move on. And that layer is microcirculation, the tiny capillaries in the feet and calves that quietly determine how strong or weak your legs feel. And when these capillaries are sluggish, muscles feel heavy and unresponsive. But when they are gently activated without pressure spikes, warmth returns to the feet. And warmth is one of the clearest signs that muscles are finally being fed. And this is especially critical after 50, because what most people call leg aging is often a nervous and vascular issue rather than a muscular one. The system that carried your confident stride for decades slowly loses support. And when nerve signals arrive late and vessels hesitate to open, the legs feel disconnected. And when patients tell me their legs feel wooden in the morning, I usually know it is not the muscles themselves, it is the nervous tissue lacking nourishment, a process that develops quietly over years, and many people try to fix it with massages, creams, or random exercises. But these only sit on the surface because no structure works properly without its foundation, and that foundation is what the body receives at the start of the day. And I remember a woman in her early 60s who described walking as if the floor were padded, uncertain. And when we adjusted her mornings gently and consistently, without extremes, she returned a month later and said in a low voice, almost afraid to jinx it, "I walked 4 kilometers and my legs didn't ask for rest." And what struck me most was not the distance, but the calm confidence in her face, the kind that appears when the body stops fighting you and starts supporting you again. And this is where many people do not realize that weak legs create quiet fear, a subtle avoidance of movement, shorter distances, fewer stairs, and once the brain learns caution, it reinforces fragility. And breaking that cycle does not require force. It requires restoring nourishment so the legs once again feel the ground the way they are meant to. And this is why strengthening the legs is not about pushing harder. It is about allowing natural processes to return. And the closer we get to the simple morning element that supports this process, the clearer it becomes that mornings are the ideal window, because the body is open, ready, and responsive. And when you give it what improves vascular tone and feeds nerve endings, the response is not psychological, it is physiological. Blood flow changes, capillaries open, signals travel faster, and people feel it even without formal exercise. As we move closer to the core of this conversation, it becomes important to understand why legs begin to feel weak faster than arms as we age. And the reason is simple, but rarely explained. The legs carry the full weight of the body every single day, every step, every minute. And because of that, their tissues dry out, compress, and lose elasticity sooner if they are not supported. And this is where most people misunderstand what is really happening. They think muscles are failing. But very often the real problem lies deeper in the connective tissue system, especially the fascia. The thin layers that wrap every muscle connect structures and allow movement to feel smooth and responsive. And when fascia loses hydration and flexibility, movement becomes stiff, heavy, and uncertain, even if the muscles themselves are not weak. And this is why people often say their legs feel tight, wooden, or resistant rather than painful. And here is the key insight: fascia responds extremely well to gentle, consistent nutritional support, especially in the morning when tissues are naturally more dehydrated after sleep, and when the right building material is supplied early in the day, fascia regains moisture, elasticity, and glide, which is why people describe their legs as moving more freely even without increasing exercise. And this brings us to the moment where the entire picture finally connects, because the simple morning food we have been circling around works precisely at this level, not as a stimulant, not as a painkiller, but as a structural support. And that food is plain dietary gelatin, something many people associate only with cooking or desserts. Yet in reality, it is one of the richest natural sources of collagen-forming amino acids, the very building blocks your body uses to repair fascia, strengthen connective tissue, support joints, and improve the internal structure that keeps legs stable. And the reason gelatin works so well in the morning is because after sleep, the body is primed to absorb these amino acids efficiently, tissues are ready to rehydrate, and the nervous and vascular systems are waiting for a signal to engage. And when gelatin is introduced gently, dissolved in warm liquid, or mixed into a simple breakfast, it becomes part of the metabolic flow rather than a burden. And what happens next is not dramatic, but deeply effective. Circulation improves, fascia begins to retain moisture again, nerve signaling becomes clearer, and muscles receive support without being overstimulated, which is why people report warmer feet, steadier steps, and a sense that their legs are finally working with them instead of against them. And this is not a one-day effect, it is cumulative. After 7 days, many notice the first changes. After 3 weeks, movement feels more natural, and after 2 months, the morning weakness that once felt inevitable often fades into the background. And I remember a man in his early 70s who told me he was tired of feeling like his legs had a mind of their own, and when he began this simple routine, warm liquid and 1 tablespoon of gelatin in the morning, he was skeptical. But a week later, he said he climbed stairs without stopping. A month later, he was walking in the evenings again. And eventually he told me something I hear often: "My legs feel like they belong to me again." And that statement captures the real goal. Not youth, not performance, but control, confidence, and freedom. Because strong legs are not about pushing limits, they are about removing fear. And when the body receives steady, respectful support, it responds with balance, resilience, and ease. Proving once again that aging is not the loss of strength, it is often just the loss of the right signals, and those signals can be restored. And now, as we bring everything together, I want you to hear this clearly. The strength of your legs is not about age, effort, or forcing your body to do more than it can. It is about giving it what it quietly needs at the right moment. And that moment is the morning, when your body is open, receptive, and ready to rebuild. And when you choose a simple, warm, consistent start that includes a small amount of gelatin as nourishment rather than stimulation, you are not chasing youth, you are restoring structure, hydration, circulation, and nerve clarity. And this is why the change feels different from a quick boost. It feels stable, grounded, and trustworthy. And this is also why so many people describe the same experience in their own words: "I feel the floor again. I don't think about my steps anymore. I walk without fear." Because when the connective tissue regains elasticity, when blood reaches the small vessels in the feet, and when nerve signals travel without delay, the body stops fighting itself and starts supporting you. And that support brings more than stronger legs. It brings confidence, movement, and freedom. The freedom to walk, to stand, to travel, to live without quietly negotiating with your own body every day. And the most important part is that this does not require extreme changes, expensive products, or intense workouts. It requires respect, consistency, and patience. 7 days to notice, 3 weeks to feel real change, 2 months to forget what morning weakness once felt like. And if you start tomorrow with one small, warm, intentional choice, you are not starting a program. You are beginning a relationship with your body that allows it to work with you instead of against you. And if this message helped you see your legs differently, support this video so others can find it too. And remember, your body still knows how to be strong. It just needs the right signal to remember, and your legs are ready to respond.